Dạ, Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Kính bạch trên thầy, con kính thưa quý thầy, sư cô, con toàn thể đại chúng. Bây giờ trước khi con xin phép chia sẻ bằng tiếng Anh thì chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau niệm danh hiệu Đức Bổn Sư 3 lần. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Bây giờ mình sẽ niệm thêm một lần nữa bằng tiếng Phạn. Nam mô Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Cảm ơn đại chúng. Giờ mình xin phép được chia sẻ bằng tiếng Anh. So dear respected Thầy, dear families, dear all friends, welcome to our weekly Sunday service. How was your day today? It was good. As we all know, on Monday we have Family Day. So Family Day is coming up, and as usual, as you would expect from the monks, we will give the talk about Family Day. It's very typical of the monks to take an occasion and then turn it into a sharing. So as usual, today we will be here together, and I would like to share with you some things about practicing in a family. So when we say family, family can mean different things for many people. Depending on who you are and the conditions that you grew up with, family might mean something different to you. Now, some people, when we say the word family, we are reminded of warmth, of comfort. We're happy, and good memories come back. But for some people, it's different. It's difficult for them because maybe when we say the word family, difficult memories come up. And so we are all here on this earth, so we must have a father and we must have a mother. And we might not have a brother or might not have a sister, but we do have friends and we do have relatives. Or maybe we do have siblings and brothers and sisters. So our family is very important to us. It is one very big condition that brings about our presence in the world. So in the Buddhist teaching, our previous karma is what that conditions the present situation. And so, for example, it's like a tree or a plant. If we plant a watermelon seed, for sure you would expect that a watermelon would grow, right? A watermelon sapling, and then I'm not sure if watermelons aren't trees, but anyways, you get a watermelon fruit if you plant a watermelon seed. So that is the definite. If you plant a watermelon seed, you will get a watermelon fruit. But it also depends on how we choose to water the plant, or how we choose to take care of the plant, or what conditions come in to the plant being nurtured. For example, the sun, the rain, the clouds, the farmer. So there are many different conditions that come together in order for the watermelon to be a watermelon. So it depends on us, how we take care of that particular plant, how we nourish that particular plant. So in the Buddhist teaching, although our karma is the basis of what we become in this present life, our karma is not definite, so we can change our karma. It's just like the only definite thing is we have karma, which is the watermelon. The watermelon seed turns into the watermelon. So the definite thing is karma, but what we can do is we can work to change that karma. We can work to transform it, to make it better. So it's like a plant, and our family, we kind of think of it as the same. You might have heard the term family tree. Everyone in our family is like a tree, or everyone in our family is like a flower. And whether or not that flower blooms, whether or not that tree is strong, depends on how we water it, depends on how we treat it, how much care and how much love we put into the process of taking care of that plant. So that means we are transforming and we are generating. These are two very important components of the practice. It means when we say the practice, we mean just by making ourselves better people every day. And these are two very important components. Remember, for me, transforming and generating. In order to care for our loved ones, we have to do one very important thing, that is to transform our own bad habits. And that is something that can be a very big condition, a very big factor in what makes our loved ones happy, is that we make them happy because we ourselves have undergone a lot of transformation. We change and we develop well as a person. And the other component is generating happiness. Basically, generating happiness is also in how we choose to love our loved ones and how we offer them our time, how we offer them our care, and how much we are actually there for them. Having a happy family, in a way, means having good practice. And personally for me, I feel that this is very important because my father and my mother, my mom and my dad, they are both Buddhists. They're both Buddhists, and their son is a monk, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best practitioners in the whole world. So my mom and dad have troubles too. And I remember before I went to France, before I came to Plum Village in France, I went home to kind of rekindle the relationship of my mom and my dad, but in the end they broke apart again. And so what I noticed is they misunderstood each other a lot. They weren't able to listen to each other anymore, and they weren't able to take care of their anger. And one more really important thing is, in a relationship we have to practice to lower ourselves a little bit. Sometimes if we're right, we don't always have to be right. Even if we're right, we should say sorry. Or in a way, the more you lower yourself, the better the situation will be. And not in every situation. For example, let's say in an abusive relationship, but in a normal relationship, the more that, when you say yin yang, the more we yin yang, the more happy the relationship will be. So I'm not sure if the youth here would know the story of Du's wife. It's a very, very famous Vietnamese folk tale. Còn là nói đến câu chuyện của Thiết Phụ Nam Sư, tức là vợ chàng Trương á. Có một cái câu chuyện là con sẽ kể cho mọi người nghe. So this story is basically about a couple, and during this time in Vietnam there was a war, and they were fighting against the Champa people. So the husband had to go to war, and the husband in his character had always been very jealous of his wife. Well, not jealous of his wife, but very jealous. Like, let's say if somebody else talked to his wife or was close to his wife, he would feel very jealous. And so the husband himself already had this kind of blockage. And so right when he left to go to fight in the war, his wife had a baby. And he was very happy to learn that his wife was pregnant. And then when he went to the war, she gave birth to the baby and she raised a child. So it had been somewhat around 9 years. And when he came back from the war, the little boy didn't know who his father was. So when he came home and he saw his son, he said, "Oh my goodness, my little boy, he's so grown now." And he came to give his son a big hug. His son said, "You're not my dad. My dad only comes at night." Oh no, that's not good. But you know, it's not what we think. So at that very moment, as much as he felt happy to see his wife and children, at that moment he felt just as angry at his wife. And he didn't want to speak to his wife. He didn't want to hear his wife explain. He had no sympathy for his wife. And he said, he said very rude things to his wife, like, "How could you be such a kind of person? When I'm away, how could you be with another man?" And so after he says all of this, without controlling his anger, his wife doesn't have a chance to explain. And she walks around the village and, being unable to explain to her husband because her husband refused to listen, she went by a river and then she drowned herself in the river. And what happened after that was when he came home and he had this kid who was supposedly his son. At night, he lit the candle in the room where they slept. And the little boy was like, "That's my father. My father's on the wall. That's my father." And at that moment, the husband finally realized that all this time during the period when he was at war, his wife had been alone at home trying to raise their child. And every night, because the kid would always ask, "Hey, where's my dad? Like, all the other kids at school have dads, where's my dad?" And the mom would not know what to say, so she would say, "Hey, look at that shadow on the wall, that's your dad." And every night she would cry and she would talk to that shadow. So the little boy grew up basically thinking that that shadow was his dad. And in the end, because he refused to listen to her, because he refused to allow her to have the opportunity to explain herself, she died. And so this is when the element of understanding comes in. It's very important, and we repeat it again and again, the word understanding and love. Understanding is hiubi, or titoy, as maybe the elders are familiar with that term more, titoy. And love is tintum or tubi. So when we have understanding and love, that is the miracle ingredient of our relationship with our family, no matter who it is with, our mother, our father, even our friends. So every day we can think of each and every one of the members in our family as a Bodhi tree, or any tree you want, your favorite type of tree, your favorite type of plant. But please remember just to water that plant every day, to do your best to nourish that plant. And we'll get into how we can nourish that plant in a bit. So as you heard, the fifth realization of the awakened beings, I'll just pull out an excerpt from it. It says, "Bodhisattvas always listen to and learn from others so their understanding and skillful means can develop, and so they can teach living beings and bring them great joy." So in order to bring our loved ones great joy, we have to practice understanding. And by understanding them, by allowing them to have the chance to speak, by giving them space and love that is not conditioned, that is when we can bring them great joy. Sometimes we have, in English we have a saying, "I know her," or "I know him like the back of my hand." But do we really know what the back of our hand looks like? Like, can you tell me how many wrinkles there are on the back of your hand? So we don't really know what the back of our hand looks like. And a person is a whole world. So in order to love someone, you have to really take the initiative to try to understand that person. In Plum Village, the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh I didn't have the chance to study directly under him, but just being in Plum Village and listening to the recordings of his talks gave me a lot of benefit. And there's something really special in Plum Village called the 6 mantras. And you know, in Vietnamese, we say Thần Chú, and Thần Chú means miraculous, proclamation, or in English we just call that mantra. But you know, when you go to Chùa, you hear like, you don't understand what that is. But in Plum Village, there are 6 mantras that you can very, very clearly understand and put into your practice. And that is, the first one is, darling, I am here for you. As cheesy as it sounds, telling your loved one that you're there for that person makes a very, very big difference. So I won't go deeply into these mantras, but I hope that we can remember some of them and we can practice to say these mantras to our loved ones. And the second mantra is, I know you are there and I'm very happy. Often we find that even myself, there was a venerable that I looked up to a lot, and I didn't take the time to call him. And then one day I just received the news that he passed away, and then I automatically regret that I didn't put more time into telling him how much I appreciated him. So if you really appreciate your loved ones, tell them more. Tell them more often that you appreciate them. The third mantra is, I know you suffer, and I am here for you. Very important. Darling, I suffer, please help. Also very important. In the practice, we need to find a way to be able to express ourselves. We cannot keep everything bottled inside. So when we have something inside, a suffering, a difficulty, we should learn how to express it in such a way where it brings about more understanding. And the 5th mantra is, this is a happy moment. The 6th mantra is, you are partly right. So, you're partly right means none of us can be 100% correct. Even when I stand here and I speak, I can't be 100% correct, because it works for some, but it doesn't work for others. In a relationship, it's the same. Usually we say it's like we feel like it's the other person's fault, but actually in turn, it has to do with both people in any kind of problem. I remember when my mom and dad were fighting, my mom, I think she would go to work, so she just put the laundry inside of the washing machine, but she didn't put it into the drying machine. And every time my dad, I think he got kind of tired of doing it for her all the time, and then he just refused to do it, or sometimes he would just take it out and just put it on the ground. And my mom would feel so bad about it. She would feel so hurt because of what my dad did. There's and for monks, we don't really have the opportunity to live with our blood family a lot. So I don't have the opportunity to live with my mom, my little brother, and my dad, but we live in the monastery, and everybody's our family. So that's why, in Vietnamese, even when we say con chào chú, con chào cô, con chào bác, con chào ông, con chào bà, that means we establish a connection with everyone. We treat everyone as if they were our family. And one thing we need to change is when we talk about người Tây, we need to say chú Tây, hay là bác Tây, hay là cô Tây. We can't say thằng Tây. It's not so nice. For us Vietnamese people, we need to correct that part. Everybody is connected in a way. If you weren't here, then I wouldn't be standing here to share with you. And if I didn't come up here to give this talk today because I was afraid, then maybe we would have just had chanting, for example. And I remember Bác Yu Guan, she was she was very close to my heart, but she didn't know me that well. She would, sometimes I see her sit here, and one time I went up to her I didn't know who she was. She just looked like a really, really nice grandma. And I went up to her and I talked to her, and then I became very close with her. For some reason, I called her Mai. I called like many elders in our community, like Bác Du Hiền, I call her Banoi, or I call Bác Yu Wan or Mai. And Bác Yu Wan, she eventually she was very close to me. And I remember one time in particular, I went up to see her, and she was sitting here. And then I said, Mai khỏe không? Nó nói, cũng được nhưng mà bị chân tôi yếu. And then I remember every time I spoke to her, you had to speak a little bit louder because she has like she can't hear so well. And so I remember on that one day in particular, she came to me and she said, as all way back, the elders in the community, they always say to the younger monks, "Ráng tu nha, thầy ráng tu nha." And she gave me a kiss on the cheek. One of those Asian kisses where you just use your nose and go, yeah. So that was my one very close memory with Bác Yu Wan, and I always call her Mama. The Buddha even said that in the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, all living beings have been our mother and father before. Because the very beginning, from the very beginning, which there's practically no beginning, we've all been reborn again and again and again. So that's why we should treat everyone around us with respect. Everyone is considered our relative. When I was little, just to speak a little bit more on the topic of interbeing, when I was little, I didn't know what interbeing was. And I remember when I read Kinh Báo Hiếu Phụ Mẫu, is the sutra on repaying the kindness of your parents. And it talks about like how your mom carries you in her stomach for 10 months, and then she goes through so much difficulties for you, and how your dad has to work hard. And basically it tells you to respect your parents. And the sutra was taught by the Buddha. Or so we think it's taught by the Buddha. The things that it teaches is very beautiful. So I remember when I was very little, maybe 6, I read the sutra along with the monks, and then at night I was just lying on the bed in the temple, and then I started crying because I thought about how much my mom did this, did that for me, and I was just like, I want my mommy. And I was only 6 years old, so I wouldn't stop crying for a couple of days, and then the nun that was taking care of me, she called me up to her, and she was sitting on a hammock. I remember very clearly, she took my hand, and she pointed at it. She said, "You see your hand? The blood that is running inside of you is the blood of your mom and the blood of your dad. So no matter wherever you go, your mom and your dad always go there with you." So that is interbeing. That means we interart, we are connected to each other, and we are within each other. Sometimes not physically, like if someone is not your relative, but we all depend on each other to live. Like how we depend on the guy who made the rice cooker. We depend on the guy who made the rice cooker factory. We depend on the guy and the lady that made the rice cooker making guy that made the rice cooker factory. So we are all dependent on each other. And I remember one time when I was at school, we had some kind of sharing in class, and then it just came to me that we are all actually closely connected. Well, not very closely connected, but we're distant relatives. So there must have been 2 people, right? At first, and then they made more people, and those people made even more people, and those people made even more people. So in a way, we are all a family. And I just checked out on the internet today. Science said that we are very, very connected to each other. Because we are so connected, let's say when you stub your toe, when you walk somewhere and you accidentally bang your foot on a piece of furniture, what is the first reaction that your body does? It's your hand, right? Your hand goes to your foot or your toe, and you kind of rub and kind of comfort the hand. And so because we are connected to each other, that's why when we are hurt, other people are hurt. So we have to be very careful about how we live, what we choose to do, what we say, and just just basically how we treat each other. We're very, very closely connected. And in a family, it should be like that. You know, in a family, when a mom sees a baby crying, she doesn't have to think about why the baby is crying or what happened to the baby yet. All she does, the first thing that she does is she holds the baby in her hand and she embraces the baby. So it is good to love our family, also good to love ourselves. But loving ourselves is different than loving our ego. And this is like, there's a story, there's another story. In the time of the Buddha, there was a king named Pasenadi, and his queen was Queen Malika. So one day the king was just hanging out with the queen, and then the king asked the queen, "My dear queen, do you love me?" And she said, "Of course I love you." But then she looked at the king and she grinned, and the king said, "How come you're smiling so mysteriously?" And she said, "Because, here, I'll tell you something that's more practical, but promise that you won't get angry at me." And he said, "Okay, you can say what you want." And she said, "Actually, I love myself." Think about it. Actually, we love ourselves. And the king said, "Why? What do you mean you love yourself? I have no idea what you're talking about." And the queen said, "Let's say if I loved another man, what would you do to me? Would you execute me?" And the king said, "Of course I'd execute you if you loved another man." So when the king says to the queen that he loves her, or when the queen says to the king that she loves him, actually it's very dependent on how the other person acts. So our love is very conditional. We love other people because they make us feel happy. We don't love, not always, but we don't love other people because we just want them to be purely happy. And so loving ourselves and loving other people in such a way where we don't water our ego. So sometimes it means lowering ourselves a little bit more. Sometimes it means doing what the other person wants more. And the more we do for other people, the more happiness we receive in return. So if you make your mom happy, or let's say as a mother, if you make your child happy, then your child will treat you well. Your mother will be kind and loving towards you. And for people who have broken families, one thing that we can practice is to forgive. And forgiving here doesn't necessarily mean forgiving the other person. Like Brother Lawrence shared in a Dharma talk, it means forgiving the other person so we can be forgiven. Sometimes things happen to us, and in Buddhism we say it's the law of cause and effect. It's because of karma resulting from our past lives. It's easier for us to accept things that are happening to us in the present if we understand that those are the results of our own actions. But anyways, if we forgive ourselves, and if we forgive our ancestors, if we forgive our family, we forgive one another, then in turn we feel lighter. So you lose something, but you also gain something. Accepting that we are the continuation. So no matter if you like it or not, your dad was your dad biologically, and your mom was your mom biologically, and your brothers and sisters are related to you biologically. And if they did things that hurt you, then accept them. You don't have to say that you like full out love them. But one thing that we can do is to practice to not repeat the same things again. And Tai told the story of one of our brothers when he was very little. He was not happy with what an elder brother did, and he went up to Tai and said, "Tai, I don't agree when Subin does that. I don't agree when an elder brother does that." And Tai said, "You can't do anything about it now, but when you grow up, you can change the story." So being the continuation of our ancestors, being the continuation of our parents, of our family, is continuing them in a more beautiful way. Let's say if we didn't receive that love, then in turn we should find that because we understand that suffering, we can give more love, and that's a way that we can practice. So to end, Monday will be Family Day, but as I think Ty would say, we can make every day Family Day. And it's very cheesy, but we can do it. We can make every day in our lives Family Day. If we make time for our loved ones, if we learn to open our hearts to try to understand a little bit more, lower ourselves a little bit more, push ourselves a little bit more, then in turn we together can create a happy family. You see the bell and the drum, these two instruments represent those two elements of understanding and love. So during a big ceremony, the bells and the drums, they sound together, and that represents understanding and love being practiced. During Drum, Thân Chu is the action of inviting, of letting the sound play. So you let understanding and let love sound in your everyday lives. And let us continue to walk on this path of practice together. I'm here with you, and all the brothers are with you, and on every moment and every footstep of the journey. And Thai is here with you too. So thank you so much for your kind listening. And con cũng xin cảm ơn quý bác, quý cụ ngồi đây để cho con có cơ hội con được chia sẻ với lại mọi người. Con xin tri ân mọi người. Ba thương con vì con giống mẹ. Ba thương